about the world, the quote-unquote world. In our past episodes, and especially our previous meeting. Why all this talk? Because it's weird to hear the religious world is bad. It's weird to hear the concepts that we have put our faith in are what the Bible is telling us to get out of. It's weird to take this term, the world, and not apply it to how we're used to applying it. Usually, when we hear this term, we think of the world that we are physically born into. Be in the world and not of the world. And what that connotes to us is there are a majority of individuals that are not living godly within their self. And so it is these individuals within the world that we are supposed to be in here, but not of. We are here only because we're human beings, just like they are. But for some reason, there should be a division. There should be a division because they're not living godly and we are. Or they're not attempting to live godly and we are attempting. So this is how it's normally taken, but this is incorrect. Again, we're going according to the Bible. What that means is that the things that are within the Bible ought to stay in the context of what they are. And we have reviewed what the world means in a real sense before. Haven't done so recently, but we will rehash this. The book of John. The book of John. John 18. John 18. John 18, 19 and 20. John 18, 19 and 20. The book of John, chapter 18, verse 19 and 20 reads, "The high priest then asked Jesus of his disciples and of his doctrine." And so check out the response. The response is, "I spake openly to the world. I ever taught in the synagogue and in the temple, whither the Jews always resort, and in secret have I said nothing." Now the Bible, as we have seen, the Bible teaches through association. When we see one word and then another word following, then another word following, the Bible is associating those words as meaning the same thing. So when it says, Jesus answered him, "I spake openly, 1, to the world. I ever taught 2, in the synagogue, and 3, in the temple, whither the Jews always resort, 4, and in secret have I said nothing." So when we're hearing this term world, the world does not mean something secular. The people of the world are not the traditional human beings walking around on concrete or laying in grass in a park or going up an elevator in a building, or the folks we see on TV, or the folks we hear on the radio, or the folks sitting beside us, mother, father, friend, whatever. That's not what the Bible's talking about. The world in proper context. Is 1, the synagogue, or 2, the temple, or 3, the place whither the Jews resort. This is the definition of 4, the world. So when we're hearing this term, the world, our faith, as I said in our previous meeting, our faith needs to remove or elevate from the world. And I say the religious world on purpose, but I just have to explain this and illustrate this a little bit more because it sounds as though, and it can sound as though, that there is an attack. I may be attacking your particular belief or my particular belief or a religious cultural particular belief. And so to disassociate myself with the argument and to let the Bible speak for itself, it is the not secular world, but the world of religion, the world of the synagogue, the world of the temple, the world whither the Jews resort. And if we are calling ourselves whatever we're calling ourselves from whatever Christian denomination, this applies to us. This applies to you. This applies to everyone honoring or believing to honor the God from the Bible. And so it becomes absolutely necessary to understand why the Bible would call us to separate from the religious world, or the world of religion, or the theory or the philosophy in which the synagogue or temple of our denomination houses whatever it houses. It becomes then important and a bit interesting to understand why, seemingly from our first meeting together up until this point, it has always been justification is about our faith's conscience stepping out from the religious world and experiencing for its own self what it needs to experience for an intelligence that it cannot get within the religious world, but outside of it, as we are living and acting out the principles that we are retaining from patiently and temperately reviewing privately the things that are within the Bible. And so when we're looking in the book of John, still looking in the book of John 17, this is again interesting because I am not just putting this out there like, this is what needs to be, this is it, and there is no other it. That's not my position. My position is forever and eternally Bible. This is the philosophy that I get everything that I get from, and because I've benefited from it, it is the best thing to talk about because it's elevating. It's elevating practically, devotionally, and mentally and inwardly. So looking in the book of John 17 and verse 14, we can see that the example set for us, the individual example set for us, is actually the first one that spoke this into existence. John 17:14 reads, I have given them thy word, and the world, now we understand what that means, and the world has hated them. I have given them thy word, and the world has hated them. Why? Why does the world hate the individuals honoring this example conversation, this example mind, this example demonstration of how to honor the living God? Why does the world hate this class, this assembly of individuals? I have given them thy word, and the world has hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I. Surprising. Even as I am not of the world. Now, this word world in context means everything. It means everything. When we can understand this word world in context, we can understand what the analogy is, because this is an allegory. The world doesn't mean the world. I doesn't mean I. They doesn't mean them. To be taken out of the world means to have something removed, not from the secular world, but from the religious. So here we have an individual speaking that, one, his assembly is not associated with the religious world, meaning this assembly does not honor the theories, the principles, the judgments, the traditions, the so on and so forth concerning the baptisms and rituals, the rites and policies associated to the religious world. This man's assembly isn't with it. And not only is this assembly not with it, the man himself says that he is not with it. And so we need to ask ourselves. Everything that we have been reviewing thus far in justification says that our conversation needs to elevate and reform and regenerate from what the world is. We have an individual here saying that neither he nor his assembly is of the religious world, and so we need to ask ourselves, is our faith held and chained to the religious world? Do the principles of the religious world matter to our faith and strengthen our faith in its continuance? Do the things of the religious world mean that much to us? And does the figure of the religious world that we take to be this figure speaking, is this figure this same one that is written on these pages? Is it the same individual? And if it is not, we really have a lot to think about. Again, the book of John, still in the book of John, same chapter 17. The book of John, same chapter 17, John 17, verse 16. John 17 and verse 16 reads, "They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world." Plain. Plain. This means something because we actually need to read. We actually need to read. Book of Isaiah tells us to open the book of the Lord and read. We actually need to read what's going on here so that we can be able to distinguish between what the world is and what the chief figure of the world is, and what the world is not, and what the chief apostle of that non-existent world is, or what that world is not. We have to be able to make a distinction, because if we're not able to make a distinction, we will be misled by our imagination and also by the theories that our imagination is founded upon, which theories, again, the religious world are founded upon. And again, as stated previously on the time together, when our belief, when our faith is born and conceived, it is conceived within the religious world. So all we know is the God, Jesus, and Spirit that is within the religious world. Again, when our faith is conceived, it is conceived within the religious world, and all we know is the God, Jesus, and Spirit of the religious world. This is what our faith knows, but the process of justification, according to the scriptures, is the resurrection of our faith from what we know into paths unknown, as we read before, so that we can then become known of the living God, and that we can know the living God by the creative and innovative experience that we are receiving inwardly. Now, this individual in the Bible, I'm not talking about what is outside of the Bible. I'm not talking about the individual outside of the Bible. The individual within the Bible is saying, I am not of the world. This I is not personal. This I means my words. You can flip through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and every connotation of that I in respective context means my words. The words of the individual, which actually means the devotional character of the individual, the philosophy by which that devotional character is structured, had nothing to do with the principles that were within the religious world. Absolutely nothing. That's what got the man crucified, right? That's what got him crucified. What got him crucified was that he was preaching a philosophy contrary to what the Jews taught. We reviewed this in the book of Isaiah. The individual taught against the formalities, against the principles, against the standards, against the handwritten religious law of the Jewish religion. That standard of what is handwritten is the philosophy of the religious world. So if our faith is founded upon an individual, primary or chief figure, whose mode of operation is religious law, we have to understand that the individual that is within the Bible is saying, I am not of this. What is he of? Isaiah 53, by his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many. These are two different experiences. The experience within the world, the experience within the religious world, it is based upon the condition of us, you and me, executing deed and right by theory, and then allowing that deed and right by theory to boost our feelings to let us know that we are in the divine eye. What is contrary to this is actual knowledge. Receiving knowledge of the words within the scripture through a living experience, so that what we gain, we can then recycle to allow it to become personal to us in our living human and devotional experience. Two different modes of operation, and the one in the Bible, the individual in the Bible, says that he is not of the world, and most emphatically and no doubt he is of the other, because it's prophesied in the book of Isaiah 53 that he is of the other if the knowledge of my righteous servant shall justify many. And this is beyond interesting. It's beyond interesting because it changes the direction of how we think about the Bible. It changes the direction of how we think our experience with the Bible should go. Because we have spent many years, or however long we have spent, in one point and in one fixed denomination or destination or traditional thought or scope of theoretical foundation, and it has only led us to what the religious world allows us to. It is almost as if watching the news, right? You watch the news and you see what the news wants you to see. You watch your CNN, you watch the Fox, you watch all of the other ones, and they show you what they want you to show you. But then you go to some other outlet and then it gives you the same information, but there's a little bit more. And then you go to another outlet and then it gives you entirely more information than what was previously shown to you. It's the same thing. The religious world wants us to know what it only wants to know because its theory is what it is. And let that be what it will, but for the individual concerned with their human being and also the devotional character, the Bible is letting us know that there's more to the story. That more to the story is that while our faith is conceived within the religious world, it is not ideal that we remain within it. Why? Because the individual that supposed to be the foundation, that is supposed to be the foundation of this movement, is the individual that first taught the conversation's movement away from what the religious world is and into the scriptures personally to develop the landscape of the personal faith. The individual that founded this movement, the one that is written in the book of John, not the figure we know, not the one that we're taught by the religious world, the one in the Bible is letting us know that the standard of his devotional character, if we will be on the same track as him, needs to move away from what the religious world is, because his mind and character is not and will never be there, and neither should ours. So to the sincere individual caring for their human beings' growth and development, caring for their devotional character's growth and development, this is for them. And I'm just not talking here. Same chapter, still John 17, same chapter, John 17 and verse 6. John 17 and verse 6 says, I have manifested thy name unto the men which thou hast given me, that thou gavest me where? Where did these individuals that are connected to him come from? I have manifested thy name unto the men which thou gavest me out of the world. Thine they were, thou gavest them me, and they have kept thy word. So if we are running from house to house, church to church, pastor so-and-so to pastor so-and-so, website to website, and we're still not being filled by what is within the Bible, it is because we are lacking what this individual is saying. This individual is saying that to them that have been taken from out of the world, these individuals have received his manifestation. And this isn't something that's held to that age. This manifestation is still going on to this day and right now, although it happens as we review the words that are within the scriptures. That manifestation is mental. That manifestation is in the form of a conversation. And the more that we review, the more that we learn what is in the religious world is not that, but the more that we can understand that what is outside of that, and that is within the Bible, that is what the experience is, and that is what we are to know. So this is plain language. This is truly plain language, and we have to judge our faith and judge the character of it, and that's really what all of this is about. When it comes down to justification and the process of it, it comes down to us being able to willingly and, humbly judge the character of our faith to where we can get it to be where it needs to be for us on a human level. On a human level. It's not supposed to stay in that box of religious philosophy, religious opinion. Everything within the scriptures, they are for our human growth and development. And so it may sound crazy to hear the Bible's perspective as opposed to what we traditionally know, because what we traditionally know, that is what we hold dear to, and that is actually also what is popular. So it's really difficult. It's really difficult to hear the Bible and then to go against what's popular if we don't really have a solid foundation on what the scriptures are actually saying. The philosophy within the Bible, it is not the philosophy that is within the religious world. The disposition within the Bible is not the disposition that is within the religious world. And again, I am just not talking. This is in the Bible. Turning to the book of 1 John. Turning to the book of 1 John chapter 2. 1 John, the book of 1 John chapter 2 and verse 15 and 16. 1 John chapter 2 and verse 15 and 16. 1 John chapter 2 verses 15 and 16 reads, "Love not the world, neither the things that are in the world. If any man love the world, the love of the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life is not of the Father, but is of the world." Now, if John 4:24 will be true, and if we're going to take John 4:24 to be true, that this same Father, we will equate him to God, and that God in John 4:24 is a spirit, then the love of what is spirit, we really should not be associating that to the type of love we associate with the human being. Two different things, and that's a whole nother thing in the Bible. When it comes to this love of the world and this love of the Father, this aspect of love needs to stay in the context of who it is being related to, and what its relation is to the one that it's being related to. If God is a spirit, this love has to, primarily and firstly relate to what is spirit. John 3:6, that which is of the spirit is spirit. When it comes to this love of the Father, has to do with what is spirit. And what is spirit in the Bible is what is mind. What is within the religious world has nothing to do with what is mind, but has everything contrary to that. What is within the world has nothing to do what is mind, but has everything to do that is contrary to that, which is the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. And if we're listening, we're actually going to, we are hearing what the woman Eve actually consented to in the book of Genesis. Genesis 3 and 6. Genesis 3 and 6 reads, "When the woman saw that the tree was good for food, lust of the eyes, that it was pleasant to the eyes, lust of the flesh, and that it was a tree desired to make one wise, pride of life, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband." Now in the book of John it says, all that is in the world is the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. In the book of Genesis, it says that the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant to the eyes, and that it was a tree to be desired to make one wise. These three things are synonymous. These are three synonymous plagues to our devotional character. Firstly, and due to it affecting our devotional character, firstly, it secondarily falls down to our human being. The religious world has everything that this woman did in violation. The longer we remain with where this woman remained, mentally and devotionally, or if you prefer the word spiritually or philosophically, which is better, the longer we remain in that state, in that box, we remain fulfilling the transgression of this pair in Eden. That's why the man said, "Neither are they, the ones that I have with me, or myself, a part of the world." Because within the religious world is the complete violation of the living God's intention and name meaning faith, of the living God's faith or devotional character, and also the intention of that faith or devotional character for the human being. The complete violation of everything that makes practical sense is within the religious world. This was necessary because we as individuals wanting the living God and wanting an experience with the Creator, if this is what we want, this is necessary to know, because if we're going to take the process of justification seriously, we have to understand its practical application. In understanding its practical application, we have to understand the illustration attached to that practical application, and that illustration belongs to the world. Something is needing to get clean. This is what the process of justification means. This is what the word justification means. Justification means sanctification, same word. Now, if it says, sanctify them by thy truth, thy word is truth, then the sanctification that is to take place is not physical, by no physical baptism, rite, tradition, or any concocted theory that is handwritten. It is actually mental, which is why it says, by his knowledge shall my righteous servant justify many. This is the correct form of justification, which is sanctification. There is something that needs to get cleaned, and the thing that needs to get cleaned is not us physically, it is us mentally. This means that there needs to be a withdrawing from what mentally takes us away from our devotional characters, thoughts, and feelings. What takes us away from our devotional characters, thoughts, and feelings is exactly what is relayed by the spirit or the character or the constitution that is within the religious world, which is the lust of the eyes, the pride of life, and the lust of the flesh. The desire to make the conversation beautiful, the desire to make the conversation's mind pretty by various theories and such, and the pride of all of that through various deeds and acts. All of this within the religious world distracts us from actually why we are tuning in to the Bible. We're tuning into the Bible not to do whatever we're supposed to do through our bodies, because God is a spirit. What would a spirit, which is not flesh and blood, care for what is done by flesh and blood? This is why the man said, I am not of the world, because this is how the world gets down. Instead, we are to be renewed by the spirit of our mind, or we are to be transformed by the renewing of our mind, by our devotional conversations, thoughts, and feelings, so that we can understand how to apply these things to our human being. The process of justification cannot take place. It cannot take place if we are continually and consistently remaining on what the religious world tells us to remain on. So we have to take a stand.